Welcome back everybody. In this video, I'm going to be going over how to, in my opinion, properly locate the origin of a drawing and the datum reference frame. And the reason this came about is that I was working with a client and I was encouraging them to use a certain method to locate the origin for a drawing, so the 0, point, and explaining why that I believe that is the best place to put your datum reference frame. And I'll start a little bit simpler. I think for a pattern of holes that is used as a datum feature, especially if it's patterned about an axis, people are fairly comfortable using the center point of that pattern as the location for their 0, and therefore their datum reference frame origin. And then the rotation of that datum reference frame is sort of up to the designer based off of what's most convenient on the part. And likewise, if you've got a pattern of two holes, especially if you depict it with, as a pattern of two holes patterned around an axis, people are likewise fairly comfortable using the center line of those two holes as the origin. However, when you get to sort of a more obscure pattern, like this pattern of three holes where there's no obvious center point, it gets a little fuzzy, and there's some literature that says, as well as some videos that say you can kind of locate the origin anywhere you want, and you maybe use the, two of the holes to orient that datum reference frame. And I would argue, while legal, this is maybe not the most elegant way to do it. And I'll explain why. So if you, say, had a part with a pattern of two holes, and you measured it on the CMM, and this is an example of a CMM report that one might see. But if you were to measure these two holes and one of the holes was off to the right a bit, let's say 0.02 millimeters, the CMM report would look something like this, where the deviation is actually split between the two holes equally. You would not see it where one hole is perfectly located and the other hole gets all of the out of position tolerance error. And likewise, in an assembly, for example, if you were assembling those two parts with spring pins, you would not see in that assembly that you have one pin gets fully expanded and the second pin ends up off at an angle a little bit. The pins would share the deformation, and you would end up with that part centered, those two parts centered on each other. And based off of this, I believe the most elegant way to locate an origin on a drawing is to use the centroid of the pattern or the datum pattern. So if you were to start with a drawing like this, how would you find the centroid of these three holes? It's actually fairly simple. You basically take the average location of the X and Y of the three holes. So in this case, it would look something like this, and you pick an arbitrary direction of plus and minus, and you just have to stick with that. So in this case, the centroid would be at the 15 minus 4 position. So the new drawing would look something like this. Anyways, hopefully that was useful for some people, especially if they're working with parts with multiple dowels that are used as datums. Have a good one.